Hello, and welcome to the Darby Creek Diaries. I'm so glad to have you. Today we're going to finally get to the sublimation that I promised from Creativation, but I wanted to describe it real quickly. Sublimation is a gas transfer of color permanently onto something that has polyester on it. I've kind of got the definition up here for you, but I just wanted to simplify it. And here are the supplies I'm using today. This is just a basic introduction to sublimation for stampers. I mean, this video would be on for hours if I tried to explain it all. I met Ashley of Artesprix at Creativation, and she gave me a couple of stamp pads, and so I bought a few more so that I could show you how to do this without all the fancy heat presses and the tumbler presses and the Cricut and all of that. However, this does expand into businesses for many, many people. But I wanted to keep it simple using supplies mostly you would already have in your craft room or something that you could modify. We'll go into that in just a minute, but I wanted to show you Craft Express makes things that you can sublimate on. And this was just a paper that was wrapped around and heated onto this, and it takes like a minute, and it's permanent and washable, but we're not doing that today. The one thing I like about Artesprix is this is just plain copy paper. Nothing fancy. You don't need the sublimation paper to use their inks. And here is a stencil called Flamingos from the Crafter's Workshop. Just something that you're going to have laying around your craft room. I did flip it over, although it doesn't matter because we're not, there's nothing there that has to be, like if you wrote something, you would have it backwards if you didn't flip it over. So, but that's a story for another day. Just taking some little tape and taping it down onto the copy paper, nothing fancy here. And I'm getting out my pink sublimation ink. If you are going to use a blending tool, you would not want to mix this with other inks. I just cleaned this when I was done since I mainly don't do sublimation. So I just use soap and water later. But I'm just using a blending tool and we're keeping this super, super simple. So the flamingos and the water and everything are going to be pink. Sorry. But like I said, I didn't want to have this video go too long. And I'm just slopping down the color. Obviously, it's one of those things that doesn't take any talent, so I can handle that. That's my favorite kind of crafting. If you have to stress over it, then it's not fun. And I have enough stuff to stress over, and I'm sure you do too. So I'm just putting the ink on, just like you would regular ink. Make sure that you don't get anything you get it on. You would want to rinse off right away. And while I'm finishing up, I hope that all is well with you and that you have some time to craft and play. It's the best part of the day, other than cuddling with my dogs. All I'm doing is lifting the stencil off. Remember, this below is just copy paper. It's, super, super cheap. If you mess up, it's no big deal. But there is our scene, and I just am taking a baby wipe and lightly wiping it off. Later, I run it under the sink, but it's not necessarily. I got out my Misty tool, and since I'm using Tim Holtz's Bold Botanicals, which is a rubber stamp, I pulled out the inside of the Misty so that you could shut the door on it and it would be level. And I've not used this stamp before, but with rubber, you don't really have to season it like you do the polymer stamps. So I'm just trying to get the ink on here. Now the ink is a little stickier and heavier, and so you have to watch that you don't get lines from where your stamp pad moves around on your stamp. But you can fix that. I just ran it through a second time. I have a dip in my table, so I kind of press things a little harder than you would necessarily have to. See the lines there at the bottom? I'm just going to fix that. But this is, like I said, thicker and stickier, so it kind of doesn't just pop on like a dye ink would. but there are things in there that turn to gas and make things permanent, and so it has to be that way. And you can get, I have the supplies linked below, but that's better. It does really do, you'll see here in a minute, it'll show the detail really well. It's not gloppy or anything like that. But I wanted to show you with a different color, so I pulled out the yellow and a different one of the Bold Botanicals. This looks like it's a yellow rose. And just apply moderate pressure. You don't have to do life support on it. But look, I'm going to pull this up here after I run it through a second time just to make sure. But you're going to see it does do wonderful detail. And if you were to want to sublimate on canisters, mugs, and all of that, it's perfect. And you don't need that sublimation paper. You do need a special protective paper, but it's just silicone paper. Now I'm going to show you, look at that. The etching on that, I mean, that's wonderful detail. So I give it an A for that. And ease of use. Now I just have a plain old, I got these on Amazon, I link them below, cheap polyester napkin. Not everything has to be polyester, but they have a coating that you can put on cotton, but we're keeping this simple, right? So just a cheap napkin you can probably get at Odd Lots. And I'm going to tape down, I flip it over because you want the inked side to be touching the fabric, and I'm using some heat tape. And I also have that link below, but it's, nothing horribly expensive. All it is something that you can iron and everything, will come back off. Now I have the silicone paper and, I kind of mess around. It kind of pops up. So I tape it down with my blue tape. And that is just to protect I have a mini ironing board. They also have a mat below, I link below, that you can do this on. But I just have this little tiny ironing board from, I don't even know why, because I certainly don't iron clothes. My whole thing is, you want to time this, and I have a craft iron. This craft iron has no steam holes, and I've had it for years. I have a video where I stamp on velvet, and you can't have steam holes. And I hold this down for a minute. I am totally guessing. There are no instructions for when you use an iron, only if you use a heat press. But I didn't want to buy a heat press. So this is by gosh and by golly. I can see where some of the yellow has transferred onto that silicone. So we don't want to use that paper again, but it protected the iron from getting the ink on it. And I let it set for, I don't know, a second. And here is the result. And I iron out the rest of the napkins so you don't see the iron. Now, the yellow, it doesn't give you the most, bold and stunning results. So I go on to the orange. We do the exact same process. And I just I figured I would try the iron maybe just a little bit longer, because I thought, well, maybe the yellow is, not as bright because of that. But I think it's just because it's yellow. And then I chop off a piece of that original paper that doesn't have any residual ink on it, because I hate to waste. I mean, that paper's, I don't know, 15 bucks a roll or something, but it'll go a long, long way. And that is definitely meant for sublimation. It can take the heat and it absorbs, anything so you don't have it on your ironing board or on your heat press or whatever it is you use. So now I do have the iron on the hottest setting that I have. I have no idea what the temperature is of that. You just have to kind of play. But at least it's cheap play. I mean, these napkins are, I don't know, $1 or $2 a piece. It's not like a big loss. You can pitch them or whatever. Use them as dust. Well, I don't think you can use them as dust cloths because polyester doesn't do great with that. But, it's not a huge loss. So I kind of just was looking and seeing if, yeah, a lot of ink came off on that. So that's good. It means, since I did a little longer, maybe maybe it got impressed a little better. Now remember, this is the reverse of the side I inked. The actual ink side of this copy paper is touching the fabric. And here is our, I guess, coneflower. And I think the orange shows it up a lot better. Now you could do stamps. They have markers. And you're not supposed to use these markers right on the fabric. And so here is a big fail. I thought, well, maybe I could just, since I don't want to write backwards, maybe I can just write on it. No, don't do that. Look what happens. If you want to sign something, you need to sign it. I try to save it by heating it, which is a joke. But, you know, I want you to see all the goofs because I'm not helping you if all I show you is wonderful success. So, yeah, we don't want to do that. You can write on the paper and flip it over. So make sure you write backwards. They actually have stamps that have writing backwards all ready for you, and stencils. Well, here is the flamingo napkin, and I do iron it out so you don't see the iron press part. That's one thing, if you had one of those fancy heat presses, you wouldn't have to deal with. But I mean, I think it's pretty good, and I think that if I played with it more and used some markers, I think it would probably, you know, have different colors on it. It would look really great. But I wanted to keep it on the cheap, and I didn't want to invest in a box of markers, but you could just marker through the stencil, and I think it would be wonderful. I suggest, you know, trying this out, and hopefully you enjoyed this. You'll follow me, like, subscribe, come back and see me. I'm going to leave you some more videos. Until next time, bye-bye.